Hello, welcome back to Mark's House and Garden. Now there's a few ways in which you can save money in the garden, and one of them is by repairing rather than renewing. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today, because the tyre on my old wheelbarrow is completely shot. As you can see, it's completely gone. I've been using this for several years now and it's well past its best. So I've gone ahead and bought a replacement. Now, I made the mistake of not checking the axle size. So on closer examination, I know that wheel isn't going to fit on my wheelbarrow, but not all is lost. Rather than send this whole thing back to Amazon, I'm going to take the tyre off this wheel and put it on the existing wheel. So it's going to be sort of a 3 or 4 stage process. Take the wheel off, remove the old damaged tyre, take the tyre off the new wheel, put the new tyre and inner tube on the old wheel. And in doing that, I'll demonstrate to you how to change a tyre and an inner tube on a wheelbarrow so that you don't have to buy a new wheelbarrow. Now, a new wheelbarrow is sort of 40 or 50 pounds. The new wheel was £9.99, so I've saved myself £40 to spend on plants in the garden. Incidentally, these are my lovely new thorn-proof gardening gloves here. I've just done a little video on those. They're really quite effective and they're quite toasty warm as well. It's a cool February day today. So let me bring the camera in a bit closer and we'll do this live, real time. And any mistakes I make that I learn from, I'll be sharing with you. Now, any skills which I demonstrate today are those which I learned as a younger person when I used to go cycling, and I occasionally had to change an inner tube and a tyre on my bike. So I've got with me a couple of old forks out of the kitchen drawer. I've also got a couple of spanners here. These are really quite simply to take that off the wheelbarrow. You can see that this tyre is completely shot to pieces, so in actual fact this is loose enough for me to undo with my fingers, but if it wasn't, I would attach one spanner on one side and the other on the other, and that would be a way of taking the wheel off. So if I just very quickly, as I said, I'm going to do this real time, live in front of your eyes, take that off there and I shall push the bolt through. That's the axle. It's effectively a very long nut and bolt, and that went right through the centre of this wheel. Now, if you're going to do this and buy your own replacement tyre, if you want to go for the whole wheel with the tyre already fitted to it, make sure that you check the size of the axle first. I made the mistake of not checking, and you can probably see it's self-evident. My existing axle is smaller than the axle on that, so that just isn't going to work as a wheel on there. But as I said earlier, not all is lost, because I can take that tyre off and put it on there. I'm going to put that over there where it's safe, so don't lose it in the grass. How do you know what size tyre to buy? It's really straightforward. All tyres have got a little code on them, a little measurement code, and I can see quite clearly on this one that this is a 350 or 3.5-8. It says it there on the tyre. Just find that, just type that into Amazon or go to a shop, and that's the size tyre, and there will be a corresponding inner tube of a similar size. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the damaged one off the old wheel. Well, how do you do that? That's what these forks are for. You just basically put one fork underneath there and bring it over the rim, and then just run round. Put it between the tyre and the inner tube and just run it all the way around, and eventually that tyre will be half off. As you can see, it's slowly but surely coming off the wheel. A little bit of brute force, and that's now half off. We just have to get the other side off, which will apply the same principle. The first thing we're going to do though now is take the inner tube out. the damaged old inner tube. This is the bit that holds the air when you inflate the tyre. So that's coming out. Not rocket science. Brute force and ignorance is required. And out it comes now. I suspect that has got a puncture in it somewhere, and you could repair the puncture with a puncture repair kit, but that's not my problem. My problem is the state of this tyre. Right, let's get it off now by just putting the fork under again and just running it round. There's the wheel, there's the axle. I can test that by pumping it up a bit and putting it in a bucket of water to see if it's got any punctures in, and I might well keep that as a spare. And look at the state of this tyre. You can see the gloves through it. It's completely gone. Well and truly, well, I'm not going to say a swear word, but it's not fit for purpose. The next job is getting this off. So I'm going to remove the dust cap off. Now I've got to deflate this tyre somewhat so that I can get the tyre off. So I'm just going to take the prong of my fork there and just press it onto that little valve. And you should be able to hear it deflating. By taking the air out of the tyre. Hiss, can you hear the hiss? It makes it easier to work with. Just take a little bit more out. And that makes that easier now to work with. And we've got to do the same thing now. We've got to get that tyre off that wheel using these forks as little levers. So essentially, basically, you put your fork underneath there and lever it over. Now, when we were cycling, we used to have little tyre levers for doing this. I haven't got any at the moment, so we'll just use these forks. And as you can see, over it comes, and once it's inside, you just run it round. Now, the tyre levers that I used to use, you'd put two in. That's why I brought two out, because these tyres have a habit of running back under the wheel. So if you put two in, you're keeping it on the outside, and very, very carefully, just by wriggling it a little bit, you can gradually bring the tyre over the edge of the rim. I'm probably making this look quite difficult. Now that did become slightly more of a wrestling match than I intended it to do so. One thing I learnt there was make sure you get as much air out of the inner tube as you possibly can before you try removing it. That was one of the barriers that stopped me getting it from inside the tyre. Also, do be careful if you are using a fork to deflate your inner tube, because you don't want to puncture that with that. And I think another thing you could probably do is do this on a warm day or inside, because I do think this rubber becomes more flexible when it's warmer. It's really quite hard and inflexible. Anyway, despite all the wrestling, and you have to remember that I've never done this before either, I've got the tyre off, I've got the inner tube off, and now all I have to do is fit them both onto here. You can see that the diameters are the same, it's just the size of the axle that was different. So now, let's get back onto here. Now I'm going to do something first, which is essentially completely deflate this so that there is no air in there, so that it's much easier to manhandle back into the tyre. if you're doing this every day of your life, you'd develop skills, wouldn't you? But I'm one of those people that likes to have a go, and this is the first time I've had a go at this, so it probably looks a little bit clumsy, but the end result will be the same. I'll have a working wheelbarrow for the price of a new Tyre and Innertube. I think I've already mentioned it. I will reiterate. I'll be putting the links to these and a page on Amazon in the description box below this video. So now what do we have to do next is get this back on to the old tyre. Now I'm just going to make sure that's clean and free of any kind of sharp bits of twig or stick or grit, because that might puncture the inner tube when I get it back on. And what I'm going to do first is just get one side of the tyre inside the rim, and it really is just the reverse of what we've already done. So you can see now there, that's inside there. There's the hole on the wheel where the inflation valve will come through for the inner tube. Next thing I'm going to do is put that inner tube inside there and get it lined up with the hole again. Bit of trial and error is at work here, is at play, so I'm just basically getting that inside of the tyre, gently folding it inside the tyre, and at the same time pushing it onto the inside of the wheel. Now we have an inner tube inside the tyre and almost on the wheel. I'm going to rotate the wheel so that the valve is in the same position as the hole on the wheel. And the next thing I'm going to do is feed this side of the wheel inside and bring, at the same time, try and bring that valve through that little hole. Can you see it there? There's the valve, and that has to come through there. So there we go, a tyre and inner tube on the previous existing wheel, inflated. I've cheated a little bit. I've used the compressor out of the boot of the car to pump mine up. You could just as easily use a bike pump. That just needs to go back on the wheelbarrow. And incidentally, the way you tell how high to inflate these is the pressure is written on the side of the tyre here. It says maximum inflation 3 pounds per square inch. And because it's a pneumatic inflated tyre, it makes it easier to use a wheelbarrow. Last but not least, let's replace this onto the old wheelbarrow, and then we'll put it some good use in the garden. I've got some projects to get on with. I'm actually about to start making an arid bed in my garden, so I need to dig an old lawn out, so that can go into position there. Put the bolt through, and attach the nut to the other side. I'll do it finger tight first, and then I shall give it a couple of twists with the spanners to tighten it up. Hope you've enjoyed this little experiment. I have. It's not been as easy as I thought, if I'm honest with you, but there we go. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. We've repaired our wheelbarrow. Let's just tighten those up a little tiny bit so that they don't work loose, using these two spanners. I'll see you soon for some more Heath Robinson Mark's house and garden adventures. Bye for now.